Continuing the reinforcing of the front of the 1980 Opel Kadett historic rally car, after doing the engine mounts and the suspension pickup points, I'm now doing the steering rack mounts. I've heard of historic rally cars having failures in these areas, particularly on gravel rallies, and when you imagine how force could quite directly be passed through tie rod arms into steering racks, you can imagine how this could happen. So I really want to make improvements here. I also want to reinforce the bulkhead onto which the steering is mounted. So I'm following this join between the scuttle panel and the top of the bulkhead. On the inside, I'm just cleaning off all the paint, and there's also some soundproofing here, just so I don't get too much of a fire on the opposite side to where I'm going to be welding. I think this work is very important in reinforcing the vertical strength of the car, so the box that it is doesn't parallelogram from square. Particularly when cornering forces are pushed in to the strut tops in the engine bay. I'm also going to do these supports for the dashboard, because you might have a few bits of extra equipment mounted on this, and you don't want that just rattling loose while driving. I want to put a weld on the top and bottom of this throttle pedal pivot point, and I'm investigating this little panel that seems to have been tacked in. I was wondering whether it was original or not, but it's a bit suspicious to me. On this right hand side mount for the steering rack, I started welding continuously, but I was getting quite a bit of burning. There's sealant underneath this, probably a sound deadening mitigation. It's handy I can reach through the opening for the heater matrix to extinguish any fires on the inside of the bulkhead. As you can see, this was quite a flamey process. There's quite a difference also in the thickness of the steel of the mounting and the actual bulkhead. I settled in the end on pulsing the welder, and this seemed to prevent me using up all my gas as I tried to weld continuously. The driver's side mount is actually quite substantial and works its way into the corner between the bulkhead and the chassis leg, giving it a bit of corner strength. And of course, this is the side where the driver's inputs from the steering wheel go in, so it would need to be the most solid here. The circular aperture appearing just now is where the steering shaft comes from the column through into the engine bay. I don't think any of that's going anywhere for a while now. So starting to reinforce the join between the bulkhead and that front panel of the scuttle area. I tried pointing the nozzle away from the weld pool, but that just wasn't working in this situation. Welding in short bursts and pointing the nozzle back into the weld pool seemed to be the most effective in this situation. I worked my way across, and that's actually bringing me to the end of the engine bay. Apart from the welds I'm going to do on the corner behind the suspension turret on the passenger side, I'll do the lower section of the bulkhead from the interior. I turned down the wire speed on the welder and just decided to do a few little rough welds to start off where I want to put my stitches, to burn off the sealant because there's an awful lot in this seam, and then come back at the higher strength and do a continuous weld over the top, and this way I think I'll get something neat and strong. These are going to be some of the most visible welds to the occupants of the car, especially while sitting around waiting, as often happens in motorsport. So just let that burn off for a moment and then blast it with the airline front and back. I'll be revisiting these welds. Now, I've come to the conclusion that this needs to be removed before I do a weld at the bottom of it. And as it turns out, someone had just tacked this in and then used filler to make it look tidy from the engine bay. So we'll do a nicer repair here when we're doing those other repairs near the scuttle panel. It just chiseled off, leaving a void. Returning to these a second time, I could get a nice continuous weld. There you can see the hole that was hidden by that panel. Moving up from the floor, I decided to do this steering column support. I have actually had a clutch cable support on one of these cars break free from that scuttle panel. So I know you can get fatigue and breaks in this area, so welding these should spread the load. Don't want the steering wheel to become instantly fully adjustable at any point in the future. I needed to pulse the welder again for the upside down ones, or else the weld would drip down on top of me. I don't think this is affecting any of the collapsible design in the steering column. That would still be able to shear off this support in an accident. But I think securing this could prevent one in the first place. Welding one of those dashboard brackets, the two top ones is where the weight is held. I'm much more confident now in the strength of the front of this car, and will move my attention rearwards next.